Picture two civilizations standing at the edge of oblivion. One would rise to dominate the known world for centuries. The other would be erased so thoroughly that even its language would vanish from human memory. Between 264 and 146 BC, Rome and Carthage fought 3 apocalyptic wars that claimed over 1 million lives and redrew the map of Western civilization. What drove these titans to mutual destruction? The answer lies not in a single battle, but in an existential struggle that would determine whether the Mediterranean belonged to the Republic or the Empire of Merchants. One would survive, one would burn, and the world would never be the same. In the 3rd century BC, 2 powers dominated the Mediterranean basin, eyeing each other with growing suspicion across the narrow waters separating Sicily from North Africa. To the west stood Carthage, a Phoenician empire built on maritime trade, controlling the North African coast, southern Spain, Sardinia, Corsica, and western Sicily. Founded around 814 BC by colonists from Tyre, Carthage had evolved into the wealthiest city in the ancient world, its harbors filled with merchant vessels carrying grain, silver, and slaves to markets across 3 continents. To the east, the Roman Republic was emerging from centuries of Italian warfare as the dominant power in the peninsula. By 264 BC, Rome had subjugated the Samnites, defeated the Greek colonies of southern Italy, and established a confederation system that could mobilize over 700,000 soldiers, an unprecedented military reservoir. Yet Rome remained fundamentally a land power, with virtually no naval tradition and no territorial holdings beyond the Italian mainland. These civilizations represented fundamentally different worldviews. Rome built its power on citizen soldiers who fought for land and honor, expanding through direct conquest and incorporation. Carthage relied on mercenary armies, hired generals, and a sophisticated trading network that generated wealth without territorial administration. The Carthaginian Senate controlled through gold what Rome conquered with iron. The flashpoint arrived in Messana, modern-day Messina, where a band of Italian mercenaries called the Mamertines seized control of this strategic city, controlling the strait between Sicily and Italy. When Syracuse's King Hero II besieged them in 265 BC, the Mamertines made simultaneous appeals to both Carthage and Rome for protection. Carthage arrived first, installing a garrison. The Mamertines, fearing permanent Carthaginian occupation, then appealed to Rome, creating the diplomatic crisis that would ignite 23 years of continuous warfare. The Roman Senate debated intensely. Aiding fellow Italians was desirable, but accepting the appeal meant war with Carthage, and Rome had no warships. The People's Assembly, seeing opportunity for plunder and land grants in Sicily, voted for intervention. In 264 BC, Roman legions crossed into Sicily. Neither side could have imagined that this decision would spawn 3 separate wars spanning 118 years and ending with Carthage's complete annihilation. The First Punic War, 264–241 BC, began as a land conflict but rapidly transformed into history's largest naval confrontation to that point. Carthage possessed approximately 500 warships, quinqueremes and triremes crewed by experienced Phoenician sailors who had navigated Mediterranean waters for generations. Their navy was unmatched in speed, maneuverability, and tactical sophistication. Carthaginian commanders like Hamilcar Barca and Hanno the Great commanded respect across the ancient world as masters of maritime warfare. Rome's position appeared hopeless. The Republic possessed fewer than 20 warships at the war's outbreak, and Roman citizens had little seafaring tradition compared to the Carthaginians and Greeks. Yet Rome held one critical advantage: an inexhaustible supply of citizen soldiers willing to die for territorial expansion. The Roman Confederation system could absorb catastrophic losses and rebuild armies within months, a strategic depth Carthage's mercenary system could never match. The Romans made an audacious decision that would define the entire conflict. They would beat Carthage at sea by revolutionizing naval warfare. According to the historian Polybius, Roman engineers studied a wrecked Carthaginian quinquereme and reverse-engineered an entire fleet within 60 days, constructing 100 quinqueremes and 20 triremes through mass production techniques unprecedented in the ancient world. But Rome added a tactical innovation: the corvus, a boarding bridge with a heavy spike that could be dropped onto enemy ships, converting naval battles into infantry combat where Roman legionaries held the advantage. The Carthaginian response mixed confidence with concern. Their admirals had faced Greek and Phoenician rivals for centuries, but Rome's industrial capacity and tactical adaptation suggested an opponent unlike any before. Carthage's strategy centered on naval blockades, using their superior seamanship to isolate Roman forces in Sicily while raiding the Italian coast to drain Rome's will to continue. They would win through exhaustion, not decisive victory. Sicily became a landscape of devastation. Cities changed hands repeatedly as armies marched and countermarched across the island. The Romans besieged Carthaginian strongholds like Agrigentum, winning through starvation what they couldn't take by storm. Carthage reinforced from North Africa, pouring mercenaries from Iberia, Gaul, and Numidia into the conflict. Neither side could gain permanent advantage on land, making control of the sea the decisive factor. Between 260 and 241 BC, Rome and Carthage fought at least 15 major naval battles, involving hundreds of ships and tens of thousands of sailors. At Mylae in 260 BC, the Corvus proved devastatingly effective. Roman legionaries boarded and captured 50 Carthaginian ships, turning Carthage's navy into floating platforms for Roman infantry. Yet Rome paid terribly for its victories. Storms destroyed entire fleets. At least 700 Roman ships sank in various disasters, drowning perhaps 200,000 men. One storm alone in 255 BC destroyed 284 ships returning from North Africa. The war ground both civilizations down to exhaustion. Rome emptied its treasury building fleet after fleet. Carthage saw its trade networks disrupted and its mercenary armies unpaid. The final chapter arrived at the Aegates Islands in 241 BC, where a rebuilt Roman fleet under consul Gaius Lutatius Catullus intercepted Carthaginian ships carrying supplies to Sicily. The Roman fleet, now crewed by experienced sailors rather than novices, sank 50 Carthaginian vessels and captured 70 more. Carthage, financially devastated and unable to pay another army, sued for peace. The peace treaty of 241 BC humiliated Carthage. Rome demanded Carthage evacuate Sicily entirely, pay 200 talents of silver over 10 years, and release all Roman prisoners without ransom. Carthage's commercial empire had suffered its first major territorial loss. But humiliation bred resentment, and resentment bred one of history's greatest military commanders, Hannibal Barca. Hannibal, son of Hamilcar Barca, who had commanded Carthaginian forces in Sicily, allegedly swore eternal hatred of Rome at age 9. After his father's death in 228 BC, Hannibal rose to command Carthaginian forces in Iberia, where Carthage had rebuilt its wealth through Spanish silver mines and local alliances. By 218 BC, Hannibal commanded a veteran army of approximately 90,000 infantry, 12,000 cavalry, and 37 war elephants, a force forged in Spanish tribal warfare and fanatically loyal to their brilliant 29-year-old commander. Rome, meanwhile, had grown complacent in victory. The Senate assumed any future war with Carthage would follow the First War's pattern, a grinding contest in Sicily or North Africa where Rome's superior manpower would prevail. They catastrophically misjudged Hannibal's strategic vision. Rather than wait for Rome to bring war to Carthage, Hannibal would strike at the heart of Roman power by invading Italy itself, destroying Rome's confederation system by freeing Italian allies from Roman dominance. In spring 218 BC, Hannibal began one of history's most audacious military campaigns. Leaving his brother Hasdrubal to defend Iberia with 15,000 troops, Hannibal marched northeast through Catalonia, crossed the Pyrenees, fought through hostile Gallic tribes in southern Gaul, and approached the Alps, a mountain range no army with elephants had ever crossed. Roman strategy assumed the Alps were impassable. Hannibal turned geography into surprise. The Alpine crossing lasted 15 days of nightmare. Hannibal's army navigated narrow paths where a single misstep meant death, fought mountain tribes using rocks as weapons, and endured early autumn snowstorms. The elephants terrified Alpine defenders but suffered terribly in the cold. When Hannibal descended into the Po Valley in late September 218 BC, only 26,000 infantry, 6,000 cavalry, and perhaps 20 elephants remained. He had lost nearly half his army crossing the mountains, but he had achieved complete strategic surprise, appearing in northern Italy before Rome could concentrate its forces. The Roman response followed predictable patterns. Consul Publius Cornelius Scipio, father of the future Scipio Africanus, commanded approximately 22,000 men and met Hannibal at the Ticinus River in November 218 BC. The battle was brief and brutal. Hannibal's Numidian cavalry, the finest light horsemen in the Mediterranean, swept around Roman flanks and routed the legions. Scipio himself barely escaped wounded, saved by his 18-year-old son. At the Trebia River in December 218 BC, Rome assembled 40,000 troops under consul Tiberius Sempronius Longus. Hannibal set a brilliant trap, using his cavalry to lure Roman forces across the freezing river, then ambushing them with troops hidden in ravines. The frozen, exhausted Romans collapsed under attack from three sides. Only 10,000 Romans escaped. Approximately 30,000 died or were captured. Italian allies began questioning whether Rome could protect them. The following spring, Rome fielded an enormous army of 50,000 infantry and 4,000 cavalry under new consul Gaius Flaminius. Hannibal goaded Flaminius into reckless pursuit by ravaging the Etruscan countryside, then lured the Roman army into a narrow valley along Lake Trasimene on the morning of June 24, 217 BC. A heavy fog obscured vision as Flaminius's legions marched in column formation. Hannibal's troops, positioned on the surrounding hills, descended in coordinated attack. The fog, the terrain, and tactical surprise created a massacre. 15,000 Romans died, including Flaminius himself. Another 15,000 were captured. Only a vanguard of approximately 6,000 escaped. Hannibal had annihilated 3 Roman armies in less than a year. Rome appointed Quintus Fabius Maximus as dictator. Fabius understood that meeting Hannibal in open battle meant destruction. He implemented a strategy of attrition, shadowing Hannibal's army but refusing battle, destroying crops to deny the Carthaginians supplies, cutting off foraging parties, and waiting for Hannibal's mercenaries to desert. The strategy worked strategically, but was politically intolerable. Romans mocked Fabius as the delayer, demanding decisive action. In 216 BC, Rome elected consuls Lucius Aemilius Paulus and Gaius Terentius Varro, granting them the largest army Rome had ever assembled, approximately 80,000 infantry and 6,000 cavalry. They would crush Hannibal through overwhelming force at Cannae in Apulia. Hannibal commanded perhaps 50,000 troops, outnumbered but holding the battlefield initiative. On August 2, 216 BC, the armies met on the plains near Cannae. Hannibal arranged his infantry in a convex formation, weakest troops in the center, strong African veterans on the flanks. His cavalry, still superior to Rome's, anchored each wing. As battle commenced, Hannibal's center intentionally gave ground, bending backward into a concave shape as Romans pressed forward. The Roman infantry, sensing victory, pushed deeper into the Carthaginian center, compacting their formation. Then Hannibal sprang the trap. His African infantry wheeled inward, attacking Roman flanks. His cavalry, having destroyed Rome's horsemen, closed the rear. The Romans were encircled, 80,000 men compressed into a killing zone where their numbers became a liability. The slaughter lasted hours. Packed so tightly they couldn't raise their weapons effectively, Romans died by the thousands. Paulus fell fighting. Varro escaped with perhaps 15,000 survivors. Approximately 50,000 to 70,000 Romans and allies died at Cannae, the single bloodiest day in Western military history until the Battle of the Somme in 1916 AD. Rome lost 1/5 of its adult male citizens. Hannibal sent Carthage 3 bushels of gold rings taken from dead Roman aristocrats. Yet Hannibal made a fateful decision. He did not march on Rome. His Spanish cavalry commander Maharbal allegedly said, "You know how to win a victory, Hannibal, but not how to use one." Whether lacking siege equipment, fearing Rome's defensive walls, or hoping diplomatic isolation would force Rome's surrender, Hannibal chose to continue dismantling Rome's alliance system rather than assault the city itself. This decision allowed Rome to survive its darkest hour. The Second Punic War continued for 13 years after Cannae, but the strategic momentum gradually shifted. Rome refused to surrender despite catastrophic losses, approximately 150,000 military and civilian deaths by conservative estimates. The Senate implemented total war measures, conscripting 16-year-olds, arming slaves, confiscating private wealth for military funding. Rome would not negotiate while Hannibal remained on Italian soil. Hannibal spent 13 years in Italy, winning tactical victories but unable to deliver the strategic knockout blow. Rome's Italian confederation system, though strained by defections to Carthage, largely held. Cities like Capua that joined Hannibal were later brutally reconquered and punished. Meanwhile, Rome opened new theaters: Spain, Sicily, and finally North Africa itself. The war's turning point came from an unexpected source: Publius Cornelius Scipio, son of the general wounded at Ticinus. Later called Scipio Africanus, This brilliant commander studied Hannibal's tactics and adapted them to Roman use. In 210 BC, at age 25, Scipio captured New Carthage in Iberia, seizing Carthage's Spanish silver and recruiting Spanish warriors. By 206 BC, Carthage's Iberian Empire had collapsed. In 204 BC, Scipio invaded North Africa with approximately 30,000 troops, bringing the war to Carthage's homeland for the first time. The Carthaginian Senate, facing domestic threat, recalled Hannibal from Italy in 203 BC after 15 years of campaigning. The two greatest commanders of the age would finally meet. At Zama in 202 BC, approximately 80 miles southwest of Carthage, Hannibal commanded around 50,000 troops, including war elephants. Scipio fielded roughly equal numbers, but had recruited Numidian cavalry, the same light horsemen who had won Hannibal's Italian victories. The battle tested Scipio's mastery of Hannibal's own tactics. Scipio opened lanes in his formation to let Hannibal's elephant charge pass through harmlessly. Then his Numidian cavalry destroyed Carthage's horsemen and attacked Hannibal's infantry from behind. Hannibal's tactical genius met its match. He lost approximately 20,000 killed and 20,000 captured. The peace treaty of 201 BC destroyed Carthage as a great power. Rome demanded Carthage surrender all territories outside Africa, deliver all but 10 warships, pay 10,000 talents over 50 years, and wage no wars without Roman permission. Carthage transformed from empire to Roman client state. Yet the Third Punic War, 149–146 BC, delivered final annihilation. Roman Senator Cato the Elder ended every speech with "Carthago delenda est," Carthage must be destroyed. In 149 BC, Rome manufactured a pretext and besieged Carthage for 3 years. When the city finally fell in 146 BC, Roman forces under Scipio Aemilianus systematically destroyed every building, enslaved 50,000 survivors, and allegedly salted the earth to prevent reconstruction. Carthage was erased from existence. The Punic Wars fundamentally reshaped Western civilization. Rome emerged as the unchallenged Mediterranean superpower, holding territories from Iberia to Greece, from North Africa to southern Gaul. The wealth plundered from Carthage and its territories financed Rome's transformation from republic to empire. The military innovations developed during 23 years of conflict with Hannibal, strategic flexibility, combined arms tactics, logistical systems supporting armies across multiple theaters, became the foundation of Roman military dominance for 4 centuries. According to Polybius, the Greek historian who chronicled these wars in the histories, Rome succeeded not through superior tactics, but through superior political structure. The Roman Confederation system, granting limited citizenship rights and economic benefits to Italian allies, proved more resilient than Carthage's mercenary empire. When crisis came, Romans and allies endured losses that would have destroyed other civilizations. Modern historians like Adrian Goldsworthy in The Fall of Carthage emphasize that Rome's victory was far from inevitable. Hannibal came terrifyingly close to destroying Rome. Another year of Italian defections after Cannae might have unraveled the Confederation entirely. Rome's survival depended partly on Hannibal's strategic choices and partly on political institutions that channeled desperation into determination rather than surrender. The war's human cost was staggering. Conservative estimates suggest over 1 million military and civilian deaths across 118 years of intermittent warfare. Entire regions of Italy, Sicily, and North Africa were depopulated. The scars lasted generations. For Carthage, the wars erased not just a city, but an entire civilization. Punic language, culture, and historical records were almost entirely lost. We know Carthage primarily through Roman sources, the testimonies of its destroyers. 1,000 years of Phoenician civilization in the Western Mediterranean vanished so completely that modern archaeologists struggle to reconstruct its basic contours. If you found this exploration of Rome and Carthage's apocalyptic struggle fascinating, consider how alternative outcomes might have reshaped history. A Carthaginian victory could have created a Mediterranean dominated by commercial empires rather than territorial conquest, fundamentally altering the development of Western civilization, language, law, and culture. The Punic Wars didn't just determine which city would dominate the ancient world, they determined what kind of civilization would shape the next 1,000 years.